I'm testing my microphone. You can hear me. I was doing some live dev earlier, but Joy and William said hi. So, they saw my ugly source code. You can hear it in real life and on stream. Yeah, we're going to do the classic wait for people to come in and, you know, watch my cat play with a paperclip in the corner. You can see my ugly source code if you want while we wait for people to filter in. But then we're just going to walk through the gallery and talk about each thing for a bit. Here's the baby. It's set in Pittsburgh, as you all recognize. Wow. It's like you're really in a gallery, don't you think? I did do all of the art except the art that I stole. This poster took about 30 minutes of my time. The lights are spot on. Very good, Charlie Park. I am very proud of the gallery text and this whiteboard. There's like a little smile right there. Exploring game gallery of difficult games exhibitions. Yeah. It's the full name, but I didn't really want to put the full name to confuse people on the stream title. We really need to get those streamers in. You're right, I should set the description to Valorant. Alright, for those of you just joining us, we're going to give it about 2 more minutes and then we're going to start the gallery tour. I have no idea how to see my viewer count since it's not where it normally is. Well, I'm just going to let the stream run after 6:30 and then we can farm it for whenever I made this Twitch account, it like forcibly subscribed me to like Summit 1G, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Chill Gamin'. Drops on Plat 1, we grindin'. And my favorite stream, Drops Red, 36-hour rank stream. I did not help like with their online exhibition. That was entirely like thing. So that was fun. But theirs just opened about 3 minutes ago as well, so we should all mosey on over there afterwards. I think Like's done a great job of like maintaining that community atmosphere. The text appearing at the top of the screen in just huge font is the best part, probably. Yep, have fun. It'll be better. It's networked. Yeah, come to the Vits 2 playtest at 7 p.m. I will be there, Charlie Park. Feel free to advertise in stream chat. I will not ban you. But cool, we're going to use our fancy streamer overlay and switch over to the real game. If I'm encouraging viewers to like go on their own, yeah. I just realized I did not disable mouse steal whenever I pause my game, so... No, not Unity Crash Handler. Anyway, hello people. Look at that fade in. Welcome to the Gallery of Difficult Games. This is part of my independent study of exploring game exhibitions. It's been a great project with Heather, working with her and getting good mentorship from both her and people throughout the community. And to get our credits, there's Heather, great advisor. There's me, who cares. And we're gonna talk about work, ranging from big, huge corporations like Atari or Nintendo, down to more indie developers like Sunday Moth, and then talking about two works by two guys, Bennett and Pippin. So, we're going to spend about 2 minutes on each game. Thank you, the Parallax was fun. I spent way too long on skyboxes and trees, but that's why there's no other windows. Cool, do you guys want to start with Super Metroid, the fun one? Or let's play Ancient Greek Punishment, the punishing one? Greek Punishment it is. Let me get a link to you guys. Feel free to play along. Yeah, so Ancient Greek Punishment is basically a set of 5 Flash games developed by Pippin in, I think, 2011. Man, I gotta get used to hearing my own voice in my headphones while talking to you guys. But really, I think it's a really interesting, difficult game for the fact that it doesn't end, and the difficulty has little to no... you cannot overcome the difficulty. Which, with other games, they're focused entirely around overcoming the difficulty, whereas, okay, I'm repeating myself, blah, 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 blah. We can just read the gallery text and remind myself of what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah. So as you play that, we'll play it together in a second. It's just interesting how it's forever, and making that foreverness exhibitable was pretty hard. But I'm going to ramble, and I'm going to move to another game, and then come back to this one, so that way I don't continue to ramble. Yeah, failures too. Keep that number climbing up, Charlie Park. Let's see. We can talk about Missile Command. That's one I just revised the gallery skip for, so we can talk about that more easily. Missile Command is an arcade cabinet from the 1980s, and it was this close to getting an actual cabinet in a public space. And it was sad that the pandemic happened and we couldn't all be crowded around this Missile Command cabinet and looking at its pretty colors, but I found this nice model on Sketchfab for free, which was fun. But I think the interesting part about Missile Command is how the difficulty tells a story, which is something, you know, I always whine about in game design class, and making mechanics actually part of the narrative. But the idea behind Missile Command is that you can shoot down missiles to kind of prevent them from destroying the cities under your guard. Like any arcade game, though, it just gets harder and harder until you cannot play, outside of the really good people who can bug it out and roll over to the first level again. But for the average person playing it, it's really just the story of how never-ending nuclear death is forever impending, and there's nothing you can do to stop that. And it's an incredibly simple way to communicate that with difficulty, but it's one of the first and easiest to talk about ways, I think. What makes exhibiting it actually cool is that most museums really don't do anything with arcade actual cabinets. MoMA did an exhibit in I think 2013 where they like had this weird fetus version of Tetris that was like, I don't know, it was programmed in resembling like assembly code falling down from the sky. It was very weird. I can link that in chat later, but yeah, I like having the actual arcade cabinet since it doesn't really abandon the contexts in which the games are developed in. So that was a much better discussion of this game as opposed to Ancient Greek Punishment. So sorry, Pippin, I'll get back to that one. Does any of you have any questions? You can also play Missile Command, which we can do together right now. Oh my god, can I not enable Flash? There you go. Does this not work when OBS is running? There it goes. What's not very secure, Joey? Enabling Flash, you're right. So I'll enable full screen as well. We'll just play this for a short little bit. But yeah, this was the idea I was talking about. I hope the desktop audio is not destroying your earbuds. But you have a set number of missiles. Boo! For each, oh no, mission that you get. And nuclear bombs are very secure. And that's good. The audio is really, really fucking loud on IGN.com. So be glad that you can't hear it. This was originally controlled with like a trackball too. So doing this with a mouse makes this really easy. Woo! But if I let this one missile fall down and destroy the world beneath me, I don't get any more missiles back, which just makes the game harder and harder. It's really just a simple cycle of get harder until you die, until you draw more quarters out. But cool. That's it. I'm good enough at this game that I won't bore you with how good. Oh, that's a good question, Joey. You basically just moved around this cursor. It does make you feel like a nuclear weapon. It's the Dark Souls of nuclear weapon simulators, I think. It's like Skyrim, but with nuclear weapons. Oh no, I lost a city since I was reading chat. And yeah, it is really super loud. So I'm going to go ahead and kill that. Hope my voice is coming through for all you guys. But yeah, I think the ideal way to kind of like exhibit arcade games like this is just to have it in a public space where you can, you know, yell about high scores, yell about how you did in a certain performance, and really share the experience just like an arcade to preserve that context. Yes, the cabinet does open the IGN window. All of these are kind of like hyperlinked to the various things. Like the Getting Over It one opens the Steam window. If it loads, yeah. So you can buy Getting Over It and play Getting Over It with the nice little sales point of this cabinet. And I'm going to readjust so that way I can actually see chat again. Oh, I do not know if I have a favorite arcade game. I really like the modern takes on arcade games, but you can't go wrong with Outrun, which, man, I want to do like just a car exhibit and get all those stupid arcade cabinets that have like resembling cars, basically, you know, like the snowmobile games that are actual snowmobiles, or the monster truck games that put you in an actual monster truck cabinet. There's probably something really fun you can do with all of that. But the next thing we're going to talk about is one called Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor, which kind of takes that idea of Missile Command to the next level. So Diaries is a game that I can pull up a video here in a second, but it's not an arcade game. It's very much a long-form narrative game where you take different days to do different tasks. Why is my internet being so slow? It's hard because my stream is taking up all the bandwidth. Whoa, low res right there. And it is not a spin-off of the Wimpy Kid series. It is in fact a very sad game. But nice, beautiful indie graphics right there. I think it's interesting because it's a different challenge every day. It's in the day of the life of a janitor who deals with lots of issues from gender dysphoria to inescapable poverty that kind of contribute to a cycle that you can't escape from. And that's the core difficulty of the game, being that you can't really win unless you're really, really, really lucky. So trying to represent this game where you just feel that difficulty pushing down on you day in and day out over many different game sessions made me think of whiteboards and post-it notes. So the idea of having this game in the gallery is that everyone who would play it would just write down what they did that day in the game and put it on a public post-it board for everyone to see. And yes, today's date is September 16th, 2016. You should all buy this game, especially because it's $2 right now, though. But I have no idea how to handle throughput since this is not an actual exhibition. But the idea is that Missile Command would be a nice public space to play in, and Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor, in which you kind of play your own private day in, and then post here. And yes, the art does have Mega Man Legends vibes. I really like those low-res texture mapping on pretty highly advanced polygon-wise models. You might have seen that skull in the trailer that was very cute. Also, you can all read all of this. There's plenty of blabble in this gallery that repeats what I say. Yeah, so this one is one that I didn't think of until I moved this to a virtual gallery. This is our second to last game, Getting Over It. There's going to be about maybe 8 to 10 minutes left in the stream. You can download the gallery. I thought I posted that link in chat earlier. Where's my mouse cursor? But you are very much right. I should have a bot posting all the links to chat here. So I will get that for you in 1 second, EO Joey. So there you go. Feel free to follow along in the actual gallery or explore at your own pace, since this is just kind of an opening tour. I was going to make this networked, but then I realized that's really, really hard to do in 3D, and not super hard, but I didn't really want to do it, given the time that I had to retrofit this into a virtual gallery. That link is broken for you? Oh no. Itch, why did you abandon me? There you go. That one should definitely work. I'm glad I've retained so many good streamer habits from Commit to the Bits time, where I just explain all my actions and whatnot. But yeah, cool. So Getting Over It is a game where you are this single man in a pot with a hammer that you use to propel yourself up a mountain. It's really like a continuation of QWOP and Grip and all those games that Bennett Foddy did. Geez, like a decade ago in browser, where it was just very obtuse and silly controls to kind of control locomotion. So this one actually has an end goal where you have to climb a mountain. I know Grip and QWOP were just basically endless runner equivalents. But I think what makes this game actually worth showing over those is it kind of has a really neat little ribboned up and packaged up perspective on how difficulty is really just inherent to all games. I know I can get more emotional and, sentimental about that, but climbing a mountain is such a simple way to summarize it, and then there's a nice little secret at the top that I will not spoil for Bennett that kind of reflects on what we talk about when we talk about completing challenges to other players. Difficulty is really relative to different players. Not everyone has the same experiences, but I think the social aspect of just exchanging those experiences, like especially in stuff like Missile Command or Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor, makes it worthwhile to even beat challenging things in the first place. And man, I didn't even talk about the map. The map is a real-time tracker for the position of the player in the video, where this is a whole map of the entire mountain, and the player's right now climbing that little shaft right there that you can see between the blue house. So the tracker's a little bit behind, but it tracks him up the entire mountain, the entire duration of the video. Oh, he just fell. He fell a tiny bit there, maybe. But yep, that was fun. That was more of a programming challenge than anything. I have no idea how I would do that in real life, but the benefits of a gallery, I guess. And okay, we can just close by talking about Super Metroid. Also, I modeled that projector up there. Check out my cool projector. Yeah. How far have I gotten in getting over it? I have beaten getting over it. And I think you should too in order to see the ending for yourself. The ending was actually spoiled at GDC 19, so you can feel free to just look up that video. And the security cameras are always watching, but they're not here. I did put a cute little exit sign here. That's my only other cute touch through the gallery. Yeah. So, Super Metroid is the game that I think started this exhibit just because I got obsessed with the idea of progression and kind of building your own skills. I am explaining Super Metroid to you, Charlie Park. That's just a game theory, though, but you'll have to see for yourself. To kind of just close out the exhibit, I just think I had an idea a year ago that how would you tell someone about your experience of kind of growing your own skill in Super Metroid? This was around the time of the Sekiro debate, when difficulty and accessibility were a large argument in the gaming community. It does really make you feel like Super Metroid. That character on the screen, the orange one, is in fact named Metroid uh, to talk to. And I thought about doing that through other mediums since it was really useful to me to kind of think about how would you talk about a game through writing, how would you talk about a game through video. And the idea of showing on the left a normal average player from a long play archive, and on the right a speedrunner came to me. You can especially notice in this hallway how the player on the left, oh, the video cut, that's bad. But the player on the left is just much less confident than the speedrunner. The speedrunner, of course, has done this countless times over hours and hours of play, perfectionism, blah, blah, blah. They even use that damage boost to kind of push them faster the robot. The Metroid is the enemy of the game, and also a very good game. To what extent do you think difficulty adds value to a game? If so, that's such a planted question, but I will gladly answer it, Tara. Difficulty in Super Metroid, I think, especially gives you the feeling of conquering a planet yourself. There's a really big aspect of like colonialism inherent to that, but the idea of building your own skills and pulling yourself up from zero skills and zero abilities to having a great arsenal and having a great intuitive understanding of the game is a really rewarding feeling. And I think difficulty is a way to push the players into those situations that other mediums kind of struggle with doing so. A lot of films or books can be difficult, like Super Metroid. They may take you 8, 16, 24 hours to kind of like read through. But what makes games different is that there's a way more like literalized idea of that understanding. Like you cannot beat a certain boss and progress past the game if you do not understand this one mechanic enough to get past a certain point. So, but yeah, that was a ramble to an answer. But basically, difficulty in games I think is fairly unique to the medium, especially in how it locks content. And yeah. Okay, well, there's a lot of questions. Thank you all for copying the one audience plant and making yourselves other audience plants. I do appreciate it, even if I'm being deprecating about it. If you had to do another exhibition, what would that one be about? That was a good question. I was just thinking about this about an hour ago when I thought, oh man, what questions am I going to get? It's hard to say. No problem, Charlie Park, you got time. I think I started out with this exhibition just trying to figure out the entire exhibition process. And of course, that got kind of jettisoned by the pandemic and making this virtual. So I missed out on a lot of pragmatic things of exhibitions like throughput or advertising or getting physical arcade cabinets into spaces. But if I had to kind of think of another exhibition, I'm pretty sure it would just be one that actually involved me with the artists present, as opposed to me taking their works and kind of shoving them into a virtual gallery. I think one of the biggest things I've learned is that collaboration is super important to the role of a curator, and really just discussing with the artists about the context, not just in which they want their games presented, but the idea of building a shared idea behind the entire exhibition through collaboration with those artists is really important to representing an actual good show. So I hope that answers your question. Yo, Joey. Oh, yeah. Okay, legitimate question. T. Dressen says, what are some modern games that you think do difficulty well? Good question. Let me think on that. Modern games that do difficulty well. I think Celeste is the easiest answer with its what's it called, assist mode? Yeah, where players can more or less define their own set of difficulty. It is very non-pressuring and labeling you as like a baby, like Wolfenstein games are, if you play on less difficult settings. And I think being able to control the experience to such a fine detail is very underappreciated. It is a benefit of like a platformer being that actual movement and control are all you really need to make it more or less difficult, as opposed to more complex games like shooters where the actual weapons need rebalance if any other part of the game would to be rebalanced. But yeah, to answer that question, I think Celeste does difficulty well. Two more questions here. What are the strengths and weaknesses of virtual exhibitions, and do you see this becoming a trend? I do see this becoming a trend. I think the way forward for all exhibitions of video games is through kind of the idea of spectatorship. It's something we worked with a lot on our Twitch stream project at the ETC, Commit to the Bits, and the idea of kind of creating a co-creationary space for people to feel the same amount of ownership over the same product with. In terms of product, I kind of mean the player's experience in a game. There's an idea in like game art nonsense that says each game performance is its own text, meaning that whenever I play a game, I have a different experience in Joey, who plays a game, I have a different experience in Trace or Parker, who plays a game, blah, 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 blah. And the real game is the summarized experience of all of those texts kind of coming together in conversation. So I think virtual exhibitions kind of give you a good opportunity with stuff like this wall that links to a Twitter post that lets you post about your experience with Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor. And it kind of gives you a window into the other player's experience to kind of more round out your way of understanding each game. So being virtual makes these things like social media very nice. And yeah, I think it's beneficial. Also just the pure like communal nature of stuff like is so much more fun, since I don't talk to strangers at Like because I'm nervous, but man, I talk to strangers at Like online since that's easy to shitpost in. Alright, and we're going to wind down the exhibition as I finish off these questions. The next one is from Charlie Park. I'm going to say your name to validate you as a user. Is the idea of this exhibition going to be carried forward, or is this its final state? Yeah, I think I'm definitely done with this exhibition. Usually it's easy for me to just ditch things after I feel like I've learned enough, but I'm glad I saw this one through even in the pandemic to kind of get a space done. But yeah, I think I'm ready to move on and actually show some games that I've collaborated with the artists a bit more on in the next exhibition. Thank you, T. Dressen. And Mermdo, thank you, Marissa, said, man, I butchered your username. What do you think better? What do you find better about an art gallery exhibition versus an arcade for presenting video games? That is a hard question. I think both are useful in different ways. To kind of draw on my previous answer, I think arcades are great for kind of showing you windows into other players' experiences and letting in the communal nature of everyone's individual takes on a game come together way more easily. Spectatorship for single player games is way easier in arcades where there's like no social pressure to look over someone's shoulder and watch them. So those ideas with the social norms and the kind of short form nature of arcades are really conducive to showing games in general. But I think galleries really involving the creators of the game is important and talking about them and getting the discussions going. Whereas arcades are just, faceless corporate entities putting cabinets in a box that uses quarters. And I think galleries can kind of create the contexts in which text may need to be understood in more easily. Arcades have all those trappings of commercialism that our galleries are kind of free of to some extent, especially virtual ones where you don't have to pay admission and you get free downloads too. But I probably don't know enough about the economic status of galleries to really fully comment on that. But to summarize, yeah, arcades are great for spectatorship and communal atmosphere, and galleries are great for creating those contexts and actually involving the artists in their discussions. So hope that was a good answer. And to move on, barcades, yay or nay. Barcades is actually such a weird intersection if you think about it, since public events for arts, like galas or whatever, almost always have like those weird cash bars where you have to pay $50 for champagne, but barcades are like focused entirely on nostalgia and getting like sticky shit on the controller and paying $4 for a well vodka Sprite or whatever. So there's that interesting like class divide between them, which doesn't make one necessarily a better or worse, but I think alcohol in an exhibition space is probably a good idea. But that's probably my own bias. Charlie Park says, I don't recall if this has been brought up, but how do you feel about artificial difficulty or difficulty just for the sake of jumping quarters? That's a good question, Charlie Park, and no, it has not been brought up. Yeah, so to take Missile Command, for example, and the walk back over there, this game definitely was not designed for the storytelling purposes in which I can present it as in here. I'm pretty sure the first paragraph on Wikipedia says that the design prompt for this was Atari's CEO just gave the lead designer the idea of like stopping nuclear missiles from falling on cities, and he was like, okay, go make a game for that. And there was probably like an implied idea of, okay, when you make this game, you should make it hard and make people pay a lot of quarters to get good at it. Which I'm not sure is actually a bad design purpose. Money is a really hard thing to work around. Artificial difficulty in terms of like making it unfair, I think is definitely a no-no. So to kind of reframe the question back at you, I think artificial difficulty, as long as it is fair, even if it involves a repetition and ancillary actions that may not revolve around the core gameplay, is definitely a valid artistic output, but it is entangled really much in how much monetary intake the game needs to survive, I guess. Man, that was a rambling question. It is a very hard area to talk about, but yeah. Clarify an example of unfair artificial difficulty. Yeah, I would say an unfair artificial difficulty, off the top of my head, is probably like timers in games. Timers are definitely not universal. Timers are definitely not the same for every single player, especially timers like in, I don't know, racing games where it's just a set timer as opposed to actually comparing yourself against other people in a race, which would maybe be the more interesting game design mechanic. It is hard to kind of, I guess, answer this without delving into game design stuff and not exhibition stuff. I would say fair difficulty is things that are telegraphed well, things that when you lose, it's kind of like the idea of saying it was my fault I lost as opposed to the game's fault. I'm going to have to think about this more and get back to you, Charlie Park. But that was a good question. Thank you. How can we make game exhibitions more friendly to non-gamers? That's a good question. This was one of the guiding questions, actually, this exhibition before I moved to the virtual space. One of the ideas in which I explored was getting over it, which was normally played on like an iPhone or an Xbox controller on a PC. I wondered if displaying it with just a simple joystick and a single button would make it more accessible to people who weren't maybe comfortable with controllers or mobile touchscreens. Because all you really need is one analog stick to rotate your hammer and then one button to press it in and out. So I don't really know how to make game exhibitions more friendly to non-gamers, but I think controls and input is an important way to move forward. I think the various ways in which you can kind of experience games without playing them, be it through streams or post-it notes on a whiteboard or watching speed runs of other stuff, is a really interesting way to kind of bring spectatorship to the forefront of explaining games. It's kind of hard to just say if someone understands a game or not. So really the idea is to kind of, instead of making it friendly to non-gamers specifically, it's giving them multiple avenues to read the text and understand the game from, I think. So yeah, hope that answered your question. Yo, Joey? Speaking of non-gamers, difficulty would be perceived way differently for that group. Yes. Yeah, difficulty is definitely relative to other people. That's why I think multiple avenues of like displaying that is really important. Stuff like, oh yeah, no, I am vibing back your question. That was definitely a thought, especially when displaying these two video feeds of Metroid. Then like the left side is very much a worse gamer, quote unquote, than the right side. Then which just makes it, I guess, interesting for non-gamers to maybe tease out what makes the left one a worse player than the right one. But yeah, just a thought. And Marissa says, but like in art, sorry to dox you by the way, how important is understanding the game? That is a good question. I think I touched on that briefly when I said earlier that games like have way more literalized understanding, whereas you like literally cannot finish the game if you do not understand a mechanic. Whereas no one is stopping you from like reading a book you don't understand or finishing a 2-hour runtime of a movie that you don't understand. Mechanics and understanding mechanics in games is partially what makes the whole like aesthetic experience of interactivity interesting. And yeah, it's hard to say how important it is to understand it. It's hard to say. It's hard to expect what people will get out of this exhibition in the first place. Yeah, good vibe. Anyone have any other thoughts on that? It's hard to like, I don't know, manage that. It is very much like what makes games unique is their mechanics as both actual ways of consuming the art form and then also as individual like aesthetic experiences in and of themselves. Like a jump in a Mario game is beautiful because I don't know, it's cool, but it's also beautiful because it's used as such a tool for so many different problems and stuff like that. Oh my god, there's another commit to the bits playtest? You're right, and we're about our 30-minute mark as well. No problem, thank you, Parker. Any plans to open source your fake gallery so more people can make their own fake gallery? Yeah, if anyone wants the source code, I will happily give this. It's not that messy, but I don't think I can support any major things like that. And Kiku says, how do you feel about story difficulties, the below easy difficulty you see in like God of War? I think story difficulties are just an easy patch for other problems. I briefly brought up Celeste earlier, and I think story difficulties often are just condescending to the player and kind of stripping out hard mechanics instead of letting them tackle them on their own terms. But, you know, it is hard to be a AAA game and kind of expect people to, you know the difficulty that they want going in, as opposed to spending time as a dev to develop the tools necessary for people to customize their experience. But yeah, I do think we can be better than just tuning enemies to do like 1 damage and stuff like that. Hello, skang4114. How's it going? Alright, might as well close up shop around soon. I'm going to close the stream in about 4 minutes if anyone has any final questions. Thank you, Sean. I learned this 3D modeling from you. Post a tweet. I will post a tweet after I repost the secret link for anyone else to download the exhibition if they would like it. Today in Diaries of a Space... Man, what did I do in the most recent playthrough of Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor? I played it like 2 days ago, I think. I believe I threw up on myself from eating junk food. My tweet has been posted. View it on Twitter. Now y'all have to favorite it since you were there. But I will not show you my Twitter feed since that's weird. I've already doxed myself on the stream, I think, too many times. What was the biggest technical challenge in making the exhibition? There's no anime in my feed. The biggest technical challenge was definitely actually making this virtual as opposed to like an actual physical exhibit. I think the most annoying thing was this was originally a web build, so you guys wouldn't have to download anything. But Unity does not support multiple video files in a web build that well. These guys like went super fucking crazy, and it was like messing up the streaming from the assets where this would like get put on the ceiling, this would get put on the floor, it would be fractured into many different pieces. So I think just like getting video to work was a challenge that I made way more complicated by trying to target web as opposed to downloadable. So that was annoying. Would not recommend that. Why did you make it render tiny? I made it render tiny so that way my bad art would look better. It's way easier to kind of be a not artist and make you use your imagination with pixels. If you download the build, can I get it to play in high res? No. You gotta understand the beauty of seeing the 4 pixels that make up this O right here. It is literally just a pixelation filter on the screen, though, so if you get really close to the letters, you can see it. Oh, Sean, if you want to add anti-aliasing to it, be my guest. The most fun technical challenge was getting these like pop-ups to work, though. That's so much fun. That's so satisfying to like, oh my god, thank you for the 2 likes, people. It's so satisfying to pop up web windows out of a Unity app. But yeah, cool. Any other final questions? I'm gonna go put macaroni in the oven otherwise. Outside, it's Pittsburgh! Hi, Pittsburgh. I can see the bridge right there. What bridge is that? That's the one that goes to the Fort Pitt Bridge, right? Yeah. And trees. Man, I should have muted my microphone while I coughed. I apologize. Alright. Thank you all for coming. This was great. I have to figure out how to download this before Twitch deletes it. Thank you. And I'll see you guys later. Whoa, Trace was texting me a question that I'll even answer later on as well. Thank you, guys. Great support. I will make you all macaroni and share it later on. No, Mia, hi. My cat is meowing. So, I'm gonna go now soon. Thank you all for tuning in.